Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Hewitt and welcome to the Conservative Voice Show, your place for honest, controversial, and the hottest in political conversations. Hey everybody, so welcome to the show today. We got a really big show planned, to be honest. So let's get right into it. So Trump has announced that he's allowing the GSA to begin the transition process. And we'll talk about that and what it means for all his legal processes that are going on and his legal battles and his presidency and the reactions of the world and everything like that. Joe Biden has also announced his nominations and appointments to key positions in his administration. That just happened. And the Democrats continue to be hypocrites when it comes to racial and social issues. So all that and more on today's show. I'm super pumped. So let's get into it. First, if you follow me on my Instagram or my TikTok or my Twitter, you probably saw my post last night, my response to the announcement of the GSA beginning the transition process and what I thought about it and what we need to do to move forward. But if you didn't, I'm going to put it on here. All right. So as Republicans and especially young conservatives that are listening, we have to start looking at different things besides the 2020 presidency, right? Like we have the Senate races in Georgia. Those runoffs are incredibly important to the GOP. We need to look at how if Biden is elected, how we're going to draw a contrast over the next 4 years to show the American people that we are the party of the working Americans, that we are the party of the working class of Americans, and how the Democrats are the parties of the elites. How the Democrats are the party of the super poor that just want everything given to them for free, or the party of the super elites that just want to continue to indoctrinate their power and keep a hold of those. And then next we need to be looking at 2024 and the elections there and how all of us young conservatives especially can help with that 2024 election. So the conservative movement as a whole is an aging base. Like conservatives are an aging group of people, and it's us young conservatives, those of us in our mid-20s, our young 20s, our late teens, our young adults, all of us that can carry on the party's views. And what do I mean by that? I mean by getting involved in politics, understanding politics, understanding what the conservative movement is and how it combats the woke culture and the cancel culture that is set on destroying America. Let it be known that us as Americans, that we're not going to stand for the progressive and liberal policies that are aimed at destroying America, right? We have to stand up against that and strengthen our resolve in the Constitution and the American institutions that make America the greatest country in the world. We need to start to be open with our friends, our families, our neighbors. We need to engage in some form of civil discourse with them, right? To ensure that the things that are important to conservatives are still heard and are not lost in the aging of the conservative movement. That right there is what the Republican Party needs to embody and ensure that we're doing. We need to look, like I said, to those Senate runoff races to ensure that the Republicans hold majority in the Senate for if Biden is elected to the presidency. That is going to be the last safe haven for the Republican and conservative movements to be like a workhorse against the progressive party. We need to figure out how we're going to hold back the progressive movements, the liberal movements, the woke culture that aim to destroy those institutions for the next 4 years. Because if Biden is elected, do not think that it's just going to end, that the woke culture is just going to give up and say, well, we have a Democratic president, so we're just not going to aim at those institutions anymore. Absolutely not. And we need to figure out how in those next 4 years we're going to defend against that. We need to recognize the momentum that Trump gave us with the minorities and the working class Americans and how we're going to use that momentum to better our party and ensure that we're ready to fix America in 2024. That is where our minds need to be, guys. And if that's not where your mind is right now, that is where your mind needs to be. And that's where you need to get it. I know a lot of us are upset that there's a chance that Trump does not seem that he's going to be winning the election. Unless something drastically changes, that's not going to be the case. And so be it. But we need to show the Americans that we can gracefully lose as we gracefully win. That we're not like the radical left. We're not going to riot, loot, throw a temper tantrum just because our candidate didn't win. And that's what's going to set us apart. And that's what is going to put us on a path towards victory in 2024. Look for what we can do for the American people. Draw the contrast in how the Democrats are going to destroy everything that has been built for them in the last 4 years. And look towards the elections in 2024. Guys, that is going to be the biggest thing that us as conservatives, us as Republicans, us as Americans need to do for the next 4 years. All right, guys, so on to the news, right? So probably the biggest news that broke over the weekend and yesterday, well, not even over the weekend, yesterday, is that Trump has given permission for the GSA to begin the transition process, right? But before we dive into this, as I was preparing for the show today, I was reading articles, like just in the news and just getting prepared for the show. I found one that was very, very curious to me. So in reports written from CNN, written by Stephen Collison, it's an analysis piece, which still should be, for the most part, objective. Let me read you just the first sentence of this article. It reads, "Not even Donald Trump, the great twister of truth, could keep reality at bay forever." Okay. First of all, CNN, you have been about the worst coverage of media I have ever seen, and especially over the last 4 years. The twister of truths, because I can remember a shit ton of times over the last 4 years that you have twisted the truth. When you failed to report on things, chose to report on other things, at the behest of your political agenda, and twisted it in whichever way to make the president seem bad. Even if the president did something great. Even last week, over the weekend, when there was a huge break in Middle Eastern policy, you twisted the truth as if Donald Trump had done something terrible. So don't come at me here with that Donald Trump is the great twister of truth that couldn't keep reality at bay forever. Hell, you guys still thought in 2016 the election was stolen from you and refused to accept Donald Trump as the president. So you kept reality at bay for 4 years until you guys have got a glimpse of what may be a victory for the Democratic Party. It continues. After nearly 3 weeks of his absurd legal claims and corrosive attacks on democracy, a cascade of monumentous developments Monday obliterated the president's fantasy that he would have a second term. In the most significant and symbolic sign that it's over for Trump, General Service Administrator Emily Murphy, heeding the inevitability of constitutional processes, finally switched on the administrative machinery that will formally transfer power to President-elect Joe Biden. And they wonder why no one wants to watch them, right? Why so many conservatives and Republicans hate them. Why so many Americans don't trust them. It's because they are disingenuous. Absolutely, not truthful. They are not objective, and they no longer report the news. They report their own political agenda, and that is all they have. And it's you can see it so clearly in that article. In that CNN rabbit hole. What has Trump done that has eroded democracy? The last 3 weeks has not ended the republic. It has not threatened democracy. Trump has not eroded democracy. The lawsuits will be finished, and whatever the outcome is the outcome that it will be. Like I said yesterday, let's not forget that Al Gore, 36 days after the election, was still contesting it, right? So until 36 days after the election, Al Gore had not accepted nor conceded the election. Here we're sitting 21 days after the election, right? And Trump has started to move towards that process. So how we can get along this thing that Trump has somehow eroded democracy in some grand way and is going to destroy everything that America holds dear is absolutely ridiculous, right? And so, also, we're all going to think that Emily Murphy took it upon herself to start these processes. Not that Trump gave her permission to go ahead, or that she cleared it with the president and his administration. We just think that Emily Murphy did it all on her own. Or do we think that it's more likely that the Trump administration gave the go-ahead, right? Because I remember last week, the media reporting that Trump was refusing to give the go-ahead to the GSA to begin the transition. So you think that last week he was refusing to give the go-ahead, and she's just going to disobey the president and do it without his permission this week? No, that is absolutely not true. And this is the thing, right? Anytime Trump has done something that they did not like, the media crucified him. Since before he was even elected, right? Since he announced that he was going to run, crucified him. Then he does something that they've been calling for, and they try and discredit him for doing the exact same that the media wanted and called for him to be doing. His last 4 years have been like that. So I don't know why any of us are surprised. I still try to think that one day the media will become objective again and just report the news without throwing in their sly comments of their own political beliefs. But not. But anyway, so back to real news. For anyone that doesn't know, the GSA is the General Service Administration, and they're the office of the government that is responsible for handling the transition of the administrations, right? So in a report from Politico today, written by Matthew Coe, Gabby Orr, Meredith McGraw, and Nancy Cook, more than 2 weeks after clinching electoral victory, President-elect Joe Biden can finally start his formal transition to the White House. The General Service Administration on Monday finally acknowledged Biden as the apparent winner of the 2020 presidential election, allowing his team to get working on the logistics of the transition. President Donald Trump acknowledged the move in a tweet, attempting to take credit for the decision, but stressed that it did not amount to a concession. By law, the president-elect cannot access federal transition funds or contact federal agencies to plan staffing until GSA recognizes an electoral winner. The article goes on to say, I want to thank Emily Murphy at the GSA for her steadfast dedication and loyalty to our country, Trump tweeted, referring to the head of the GSA. She has been harassed, threatened, and abused, and I do not want to see this happen to her family, or employees at GSA. Our case strongly, in all caps, continues. We will keep up the good fight, and I believe we will prevail. He continued, nevertheless, in the best interest of our country, I am recommending that Emily and her team do what needs to be done with regards to initial protocols and have told my team to do the same. Right? So everyone is saying that this is indicative that Trump is acknowledging defeat, which it's not. I can see how it could be taken that way, for sure. But I definitely not believe that's true. I guess if you read just the first half of his tweet, it could be true, but when you read the second half, he definitely talks about how his legal battles are still going and he believes that he will prevail. On the same coin of that, I think that Trump is smart enough to know that the legal processes have started to look that he is not going to win re-election, right? And Trump cares enough about the United States that he wants to ensure that it's taken care of. And that's more than likely what we're seeing here, is that he recognizes, okay, two things. One, I'm not sure if I'm going to win re-election. And to try to save face and save America and the processes that America has, I'll begin to let the GSA begin that process. However, I'm still going to hold my legal battles and continue to wage them as we go on. And so I think that is where we are. So I definitely agree with the end of this article, right? And I'll read it to you and I'll tell you why. Trump had spent much of the weekend contemplating what he should do as his options to contest the election dwindled. He solicited advice from top confidants and campaign aides. He criticized his legal team's lackluster performance. One person familiar with those discussions said everyone but Rudy Giuliani encouraged the president to greenlight the transition process while continuing to pursue legal options to challenge the election. People close to Trump told him that he did not have to concede, but that he should at least allow the transition to kick in, according to a Republican close to the White House. The president's allies were concerned about protecting his legacy, while also hoping to avoid Biden using a botched transition as a major talking point, the person said. Right? So I definitely agree with that. The last thing any of us Republicans want, is a Democrat to be able to use a botched transition as a reason why a Republican should not hold office. Because we know if that occurred, right? Let's say we move to 2024, and like I said at the beginning of the article, we need to start looking at that. Imagine 2024, if Trump did not allow this transition to start, and somehow there was a botched transition that ended in some form of national disaster, national catastrophe. We all know that for damn sure Democrats would use that in the 2024 election as a reason why a Republican should not hold office. I don't think that is something that the Republicans need. And that's why I agree with it. Let the transition start and then continue your legal battles in court. And if it happens to be that you overturn the election or whatever may happen, then you're still in a place that you can remain in public office, remain in the White House, but you didn't put national security at risk at all. I think that was a very, very good thing. Another reason I think that he did it is, let's not forget that there's still those stinging Senate races going on in Georgia, right? This could look very, very good for any on-the-fence voters. Against what the media is trying to cram down everyone's throat. Oh, hey, maybe the repair. This could be the moment where they're oh, hey, the Republicans may not be that bad after all. See, Trump's kind of conceding the election a little bit. Maybe continuing with the Republicans that I've voted for in the past isn't going to lead to some form of crazy Republican crackdown of my rights, right? Which could lead to some of those voters being picked up by the GOP in Georgia. I definitely think that could happen. And I definitely think that Trump's acknowledging that transition needs to occur could help them potentially in Georgia. So Twitter blew up, right? As it always does. Because Twitter has kind of became the echo chamber of the Democratic Party. If you haven't noticed that, right? Conservatives are openly attacked, and the progressive and liberal policies of the left are just echoed to their constituents that are just locked down. For instance, I got blocked by I think it was the Richland County Democratic Party here, right? How I got blocked, how some small little conservative talk show host here got blocked is beyond me. That's just indicative of how they don't like something, that they'll just block you because you interrupt the echo chambers. So they have to close the door to their echo chamber, lock it, so there can be no differences in opinions on their platform at all, right? So Senator Tammy Duckworth said, "It's about time," tweeting, "Each day a peaceful transition was delayed was a day lost ensuring we could fight this pandemic, plan for vaccine distribution, reopen our economy, and prepare to counter the national security threats facing this nation." Yeah. You mean the vaccine that you all wanted to discredit and say that it needs to have additional testing? You mean the same economy that you have kept locked down under the Trump administration? That Democratic governors and Democratic cities across the country has remained locked down in draconian era, just communist style lockdowns? Yeah, sure. Keep telling me how that is because of the Trump administration. And Gretchen Whitmer went on CNN saying that the transition should have gone 3 weeks ago. All right. First of all, we know that if the roles were reversed and this was a Biden or a Democrat campaign, a Democrat administration that is going through the same legal battles that the Republicans are right now, that they'd still be litigating it, and they still would not have conceded the election, and they still would not have allowed the GSA to move forward with the transition. Hell, they would probably still be burning down the damn streets. There would probably be open riots in the streets of America if a Democrat incumbent had these same legal battles and the same allegations that were being made currently by the Republican Party. There would be riots in the streets. Hell, there were riots in the streets leading up to this because of the election. Cities boarded their windows. Businesses boarded their windows in their businesses in fear of what the Democratic base would do if it lost the election. So yeah, keep telling me how this needed to happen 3 weeks ago. Secondly, I don't think that a woman who is legitimately being impeached right now by her own Congress over separation of power violations and this 14th Amendment and Equal Protection Clause, Constitution violations, should have any place to provide dissent on current political issues. Especially those dealing directly with the Constitution and the legality of an election. I'm not saying that it's over for Trump, but we're definitely beginning to see the chance of him winning dwindle. And as the court cases continue to not go in his favor, I do think that him allowing the GSA to go forward with that transition is the best decision, not only for him, his legacy, but the Republican Party as a whole moving forward. Speaking of court cases, sorry, that gets me uppity. Let me just slow down, take a few deep breaths. So, speaking of court cases not going in his favor, Yesterday in Pennsylvania, a Supreme Court judge in Pennsylvania rejected Trump's lawsuit that called for the dismissal of about 8,000 absentee ballots. So, according to Thomas Barabee, who reports for Fox News and is currently reporting for Fox News, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court rejects Trump challenges to absentee ballots in Allegheny County. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court rejected the Trump campaign lawsuit Monday that called for the dismissal of more than 8,000 absentee ballots, according to Allegheny County. In 5 lawsuits, President Trump's attorneys asked the court to throw out ballots that were missing information, such as handwritten name or addresses, or the date on which the ballots were signed. In its ruling, the state Supreme Court determined the ballot should be considered valid. Here we conclude that while failures to include a handwritten name, address, or date in the voter declaration on the back of the envelope, while constituting technical violations of the election code, do not warrant the wholesale disenfranchisement of thousands of Pennsylvania voters, the ruling said. In addition, the Supreme Court reversed a lower court ruling that had invalidated 2,349 ballots in Allegheny County over missing information. The ruling was a setback for the Trump administration as the state counties moved forward with efforts to certify the Pennsylvania vote. The Trump campaign was attempting to throw out ballots from eligible voters. Guess what? They just lost in Pennsylvania Supreme Court again. Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro said in response to the ruling. All right, so I do not agree with this decision at all, and I think that a majority of Americans do not agree with this. The law is a law to stop people from cheating. One, how do we know that the voter who they said was on that ballot if there was no signature and no date? How do we know that ballot was cast before election day if there was no date and no address, right? Second, if the voter cared about their vote, why would they not ensure that it is filled out correctly, right? I think the Pennsylvania judge is showing a fair bit of bias against the Trump campaign. Ultimately, it's the judge's responsibility to uphold the law. The law says that those things, the address, the signature, the name, the date that it was submitted, needs to be on the ballots. The law states that if those items aren't on there, then the vote is not valid. And remember, only legal votes should be counted. Otherwise, we could take illegal votes on both sides and just count whatever we wanted. And that's not the way that our elections work. Legal ballots constitute legal votes. If they're not legal ballots, they should not be legal votes. Simple as that. And just because the law is not going in your favor or the way that you want it to go does not mean that it should be changed or disregarded or overruled. That is the logic that we have, right? The law doesn't matter anymore to the left. Doesn't matter to the Democrats. Doesn't matter to the Joe Biden administration. Only thing that matters is the outcome. And as long as the outcome justifies the means, then that is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what we do to get there. It doesn't matter how many laws we violate, how many rights we violate, how many legal precedent we violate. As long as the outcome justify the means of getting there, that is the only thing that matters. So I definitely see a Supreme Court appeal here from the Trump administration, to the federal Supreme Court. There's proof. The judge acknowledged it in his dissent that there was 8,000 votes that did not have the correct documentation on them. However, the judge said that they are still valid votes and that they still needed to be counted, which is against the law. I definitely see a Supreme Court challenge in this case. How you can openly say, yes, this violates the law, and then turn around and say, oh, hey, I don't care this violates the law. I'm going to do what I want because I don't care about the law. You're a sitting judge. Uphold the law. That is your job. Anyway, everyone wanted the Trump's campaign, right, to show evidence that there were voter irregularities, and they did. Then to just have it shot down by the judge and said, oh, well, you may have evidence, but I want Biden to win, and this is going to disenfranchise voters that clearly didn't care enough about their vote or were illegal votes or, hell, may have been voter fraud for all we know. But it's okay. We're going to allow them because that's my bias and that's what I want to do. That is disgraceful on you. You're a Pennsylvania Supreme Court judge. Uphold the law, not your biases. That is your job. So, speaking of Biden and his administration, moments ago, Biden and Harris announced their appointments and nominations for key positions inside the Biden administration. I think there are some key things that were said that highlight the priorities, or what the priorities of this administration are going to be, but I'll run through the list and then we'll talk about it. So, Biden nominated Alejandro Mayorkas as the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Avril Haines, Director of National Security. She served as the Deputy National Security Advisor for the Obama administration. Linda Thomas Greenfield as the Ambassador to the United Nations. She was a career diplomat. She retired in 2017, and she had a lot. I'll give it to her. She had 35 years in foreign service. Jake Sullivan was nominated the National Security Advisor. For any of those of you who remember that he was the former National Security Advisor to Vice President Biden during the Obama administration. John Kerry was nominated as the Special Envoy for Climate Change. He was the Secretary of State for the Obama administration from 2013 to 2017. And then Antony Blinken as the Secretary of State, right? Each of them got up, and it was almost funny to watch. Like, I literally couldn't stop it from laughing. Like, they all went up there and said, Mr. President-elect Joe Biden, Madam President-elect, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, thank you so much for being such good people. We are so lucky to have such true and honest people being elected as our president. And I promise that I will do everything that I can to uphold the values that you hold. Okay, let's just stop that because I can't continue to like go down that road, right? Listen to them patronize Joe Biden as a savior and believing in God. Okay, sure. As he supports abortions, right? As the Democratic Party continues to keep churches shut down without any response from Joe Biden and his administration. But he believes in God. So that's okay, guys. It's okay, he believes in God. So he's a great person, even though he doesn't live by the tenets of it. Anyway, saying the things that like Joe Biden is going to restore back America to a global place of power. Newsflash, let's put a huge banner up across that news release that they did, right? Newsflash, Trump made America more relevant than probably they ever was in the Obama administration. Soleimani, dead terrorist, killed thousands of people, reestablished deterrence. Remember the attack on Crimea, Patriot missiles. Anybody else remember those? When he took decisive military action to deter the enemies of the state and to deter the enemies of the nation? Because I remember those. I definitely remember those. I think it was like the day after his election, or hell, I think maybe it was in like the first week after he was elected. Trump took decisive military action in Crimea for the attack on their own people. So to say that the Biden administration is going to put America back in a place of global power is absolutely hilarious. So what do they all have in common? Well, let me tell you guys. Well, a few things for most of them. The only one that I'm going to leave out of this is Linda Thomas Greenfield. She's been in foreign office for 35 years, but she has not served the Biden administration at all, or has not served Joe Biden, has not served for the Obama era, right? So every single one of them, except for the former member, except for the one I talked about, except for Greenfield, is a former member of the Obama administration or the Biden cabinet, like member of the Obama-Biden era, right? So are you running your own campaign, Joe Biden, or are you running on the tailcoats and trying to ride the tailcoats of the Obama administration? Which one is it? Because you're telling me you couldn't find a single person better than the same people that served already and that failed and that the people of America voted out of office in 2016, right? Like Trump, like this is the prime reason why Trump was elected in 2016, is that America was tired of emboldened Washington bureaucrats that have been running this country. And so what are you going to do? Joe Biden's going to, as soon as he gets in office, nominate these exact same people that the American people voted against in 2016 back into office. I think it's crystal clear that Biden has plans to take us back to circa 2015 day politics. And I think it's clear by that. One, by the majority of them talking about things like, oh, well, going back to diplomacy and the way that America used to be in the deep state. And we saw all of this going on, right? That is clear that the way that Trump has set in the last 4 years and has taken foreign policy that has been very, very successful. Remember, over the weekend, there was a huge break in Middle Eastern policy. A huge, huge break in Middle Eastern policy, with the Israeli leaders meeting with the kings of Saudi, right? That has never happened before, ever. And I think that it was a lot at the behest of the work that President Trump has done in the Middle East. So saying that you're going to take America back to the foreign policy days of old, well, those failed. Why are you going to reinstitute a foreign policy that failed? I don't understand it. Also, the majority of them spoke on two things when they got up there and they were patronizing Biden. First thing, climate change. Second one, social justice. Remember when the moderates said that Joe Biden and his team would be able to hold back the left? How in the hell are you going to hold back the left and their progressives and their caucus when them themselves are talking about the exact same issues that the progressives want to fix? Like, how are you going to say that Joe Biden and his administration is going to be the bulwark for moderation when they're openly talking about how social justice and climate change is the biggest issues in America? Was I the only one that saw them speaking about social justice issues? Was I the only one that saw that? Because all but two of them are rich white men that attended Ivy League schools, that have been in politics for years and never gave a shit about the little people, right? They never gave a shit about you. They never gave a shit about the poor people. They never gave a shit about the people that were fighting. They fighting for their rights to live and things like that, fighting for jobs, fighting for the economy. Not a single one of them gave two shits about them until right now. They are using these social issues in America to try to get back into power, to try to regain that power. That is what's going on. I do not understand how the people of America do not see this. There's a reason why minorities voted hugely for Trump. Trump won a majority of the minority votes. More minority votes than any other Republican president in the history of America. Why? Because they understand that the Democratic Party is full of hypocrites and is going to continue to make policies that are not relevant to their needs. Yet the Democratic Party is going to, the same people that they need to help and that they campaign on are going to help, is going to be the same people that suffer under their administration. It's absolutely hypocrisy. There's no other way to put it. So I don't know what we all thought was going to happen though, right? We all should have known that Biden was going to retreat back into the deep state. He was going to choose those people that are going to put other countries before America, right? That they're going to choose appeasement over deterrence. Jack Sullivan talked about the threat of nuclear weapons in his little speech to, in his announcement, right? At the same time as John Kerry, the same guy who was part of the Iran nuclear deal, which gave millions of dollars to terrorist nations, is standing on the exact same stage. You have John Kerry that's standing back there, doop-de-doop-de-doo, that literally helped garner the Iran nuclear deal that gave a terrorist nations millions of dollars. Because let's all think, do we all think that a terrorist nation that doesn't give two rats' ass about America is going to take millions of dollars, say, oh, you're going to give me millions of dollars, here you go, let me take that, and I won't do nuclear weapons anymore? Yeah, sure. No, you know what they did? They spent that millions of dollars we gave them on hiring new, probably Russian scientists to make nuclear weapons. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the majority of these appointments and nominations should be frustrating. They are established career politicians that have had years to fix and address issues, but have done nothing but collect paychecks at the expense of the American people. That is what Joe Biden did. Joe Biden has set the precedent of what is important to his administration. And it is social justice issues and the ideas and the needs of the progressive left base that he has garnered. That is what it, and it's blatantly obvious in his choices. All right, so speaking of progressives and liberals and the radicals inside the Democratic Party, Rashida Tlaib has continued her ridiculousness. I guess not all Democrats are happy about Biden's choices, even though they appear as if they appease the likes of the progressives as much as they will terrorist organizations. One of AOC's squad members, Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from Minnesota, once again reared her anti-Semitic head, right? Let's just start off with say, before we start, that this came from the party that pushes tolerance, the party of tolerance, the party of unity and healing. Oh, the unity and healing. The congresswoman that says that people deserve equality is also the same one constantly showing open discrimination, right? The one that says that the right is the party of discrimination and racism and openly shows her anti-Semitism. So, in a report from Fox News written by Joseph Wolfsohn, Representative Rashida Tlaib, Democrat from Michigan, has reignited accusations of anti-Semitism in response to President-elect Biden's nominee to become Secretary of State. The Biden transition team announced on Monday that Antony Blinken, the former Deputy Secretary of State during the Obama administration and foreign policy advisor for Biden, was selected to head the State Department. She tweeted, "So long as he doesn't suppress my First Amendment right to speak out against Netanyahu's racist and inhumane policies, the Palestinian people deserve equality and justice." I don't understand how any of that has to do. Why did she choose that thing, right? That thing. So that, I think that's probably one of the most open anti-Semitic statements we have ever heard come out of her mouth. So critics were puzzled by Tlaib's tweet, many of them suggesting that the reason she invoked Israeli policy was Blinken is Jewish. Biden names a Jew in his cabinet. What's Rashida's response? Well, as long as the Jewish pick doesn't stop me from focusing my hatred on one country, Israel, then he's a good Jew. It's not your First Amendment right you're trying to protect, but your vile Jew hatred. That's all yours. Americans against anti-Semitism founder Dov Hikind reacted. "You can't just say you're worried because he's Jewish," the Republican Jewish Coalition tweeted. So she's receiving backlash from all over the political spectrum, right? All over it, right? And it's absolutely correct. And I agree with this other one. It was tweeted by Noam Blum, said, "Would she have said this if the nominee weren't Jewish?" I don't think so. I absolutely do not think so. Why would she choose that to react to that with that statement? You have a Jewish man who is nominated for Secretary of State, and then you have the anti-Semitic Rashida Tlaib that immediately tweets, "Well, as long as he doesn't stop me from being absolutely overly hatred and absolutely racist against the Israeli people, sure, I'm okay with him being the Secretary of State." It's absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. I don't understand how the party allows her to say that. And that did not receive any backlash from her party. The party of healing, the party of unity, the party of understanding and tolerance. We didn't see criticism from her about any other nomination. We didn't see criticism from any other person in her base, in her own caucus, about Blinken's nomination. I don't understand how she's gotten away with her own openly anti-Semitic rhetoric for years. That she has had for the hatred of the Jewish community. Yet she continues to be reelected. No one has brought any form of criticism from her own party against her. It's absolutely deplorable. Deplorable. And like I said, this is coming from the party of that screams unity and healing, as she's openly stating and expressing her hatred for the Jewish community. I truly do not understand it. But guys, that's really what's happened overnight. I definitely think that are the key issues that we have right now. Like I said, it's huge, those picks that Biden has chosen for his cabinet. I think it highlights the ever importance, like I said at the beginning, that us Republicans look at the Senate runoff races in Georgia, because remember, all those nominations still have to be confirmed by the Senate, right? All of his cabinet nominations have to be confirmed. And if the Republicans hold majority, then we have a good chance of kind of pushing back that progressive, like, cabinet that he's started to build. I definitely think, like I said at the beginning, that us as the Republicans and as the Republican Party, we need to start looking towards 2024 and what we need to do to secure the election there, and how we can embody and kind of use the momentum that Trump gave us. Like, that we have that big base of minorities. We have that big base of the working people. We need to grab a hold of that, hold on to that, work for the American people, work for the working people of America, and show them that we are the party that deserves to represent them, that deserves to lead them. That is what we need to do as a Republican Party. Make laws and legislation that helps the working American people. That is our job. That is what the Republican people need to do. That is what the Republican Party needs to do. And that's how we move forward after this if Trump is not reelected. All right, guys. As always, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. Remember, I almost forgot. Whoops. Rewind. Bzzz, rewind. If you haven't already, visit nonviolentapparel.com. Use the code AJEASY20 for 20% off your online purchase. Christmas is coming up. Your family's going to love the gifts that you get them. It supports an awesome American hero, a good friend of mine, and also a freaking badass American company. Make sure you do that, right? Also, guys, thank you for watching. And as always, God bless you, God bless your family, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow.